On today. Good. So I guess since we met last time, we had our big earthquake. So did all of you, looks like you all came through the earthquake okay. I'm sure for many of you, like me, it brought back bad memories of 9/21. Some of you, maybe a few of you, were not around in 9/21, like maybe not even alive in 9/21, but I think most of us were around at that time. But yeah, it was, I was sitting once again at the same, I was in my apartment. Yeah, I was still at home, just like 9/21. And I thought, oh, this is a big one. But whenever I feel earthquakes like that, I always think my first thought is, where was the epicenter? Because, you know, if it's like 9/21, it's near Taichung, well then, I mean, it's big. But I was thinking, of course, if this is somewhere else, like Hualien, then it's even bigger. I mean, it's bigger over there. I mean, so the word we use a lot for earthquakes is epicenter or epicenter. Basically, that's where the earthquake is centered. Where's the, I guess you could say, the heart of the earthquake? Where did it actually take place? So we could say the epicenter was near Hualien. And of course, it was felt very severely over there, even though it was big here too in Taichung. And it was funny because I feel like during 9/21, 9/21, many of my Taipei friends did not really notice it as much. But this earthquake, I felt like they noticed it more. So I had Taipei friends that asked me, they said, was 9/21 this bad? And I said, oh, it was worse. So they were like, oh, we really felt it. They said this earthquake felt bigger than 9/21 to them in Taipei. So anyhow, they got to experience that. Why don't we say this together? Epicenter. Epicenter. Yeah. You know, I live on the 6th floor, so there's nowhere to really go. I mean, you can open your front door, which many people say you should do. But I did learn one thing, and the only place in my apartment, if it still feels really bad, that seems like the safest place would be my bathroom, because it's the closest into the middle of the building. And I've heard this from, even during 9/21, they said, you know, if you live in a high-rise, a tall building, you should always look for your support columns. You know, these columns that support the building. You know, these walls are nothing, right? They're just dividers. They don't support the building. But they said the support columns that are in interior of the building, not outside by the wall, but inside. I was talking to another engineer, structural engineer. And they said, actually, in a tall building, the safest place is the stairway. You know, the stairway where, you know, buildings all have stairs, right? They say the stairwell is the safest place of the building because that's the strongest element in the building, or one of the strongest elements. So, you know, they said sometimes when buildings have fallen down, the stairway is still intact. It doesn't fall. So anyhow, I was kind of thinking, well, my bathroom is closer to the interior of the building, and it's it's very close to the elevator shaft. The elevator is right on the other side. So I thought, well, maybe that's the safest place. I heard something else though. Someone said, oh, if you're in a tall building or any building and it looks like, you know, it's really bad, they said another place is near your refrigerator, your bingxiang. You know, they said open your door of your refrigerator and it creates we call it a void, a space. And then, of course, if you're trapped there, you have water and food, and you can just hang out in your refrigerator. So I don't know. There's different ideas about that. So, but anyhow, yeah. Fortunately, in Taichung, I think everyone was pretty safe. But I will say this: I've been watching the news pretty much nonstop since last week, and I will say that watching this is actually another. It's funny how COVID-19, you know, Yiqing, was kind of, I mean, it was bad. It was terrible. I wish it never happened. But in a way, it was good promotion for Taiwan, right? You know, many people looked at Taiwan and they said, oh, Taiwan's doing okay, you know. Taiwan's doing pretty good. So many countries kind of admired Taiwan for its reaction to COVID-19. I feel like this earthquake is the same thing, right? I've been watching the news, international news like CNN or ABC or CBS or the Japanese TV stations. And it's the same thing. They look at Taiwan, they say, Taiwan's doing okay. 7.2 are actually some of the internet other scales that said 7.4 in America. But anyhow, they look at Taiwan, they say, how is it that you can have a 7.2 earthquake and only have about 13 people, maybe, well, actually, it's a little bit more higher now, probably closer to 15 people, died. But from an earthquake that big, and then only 2 buildings really fell over, in Hualien. There were other buildings that were badly damaged, and I know there was a fire in Hualien, there was other damage, but really just 2 buildings that actually kind of fell over. So a lot of international media, they're like, wow, if this happened in many other countries, I saw someone on CNN, they said, if this happened in some other countries like, I don't know, Turkey, or what were some of the other countries? Anyhow, they said if it happened in some of these other countries, you would have tens of thousands of people maybe dead or injured, and many, many buildings. Like if you look at Turkey, there were, I think, thousands of buildings collapsed. So anyhow, it's I think, again, obviously it's a disaster. It's something we wish would never happen. But in a way, it's been good promotion for Taiwan. Many people looked at Taiwan and said, And also the reaction. I saw Japanese media. They were saying in Japan, it takes us about 1 or 2 weeks to do all the relief and rescue and everything that Taiwan was doing. And here they did it within, a few hours. But they said the big difference is in Japan, everybody waits for the government to do something. In Taiwan, you have all these other organizations, non-government organizations like World Vision and Tzu Chi and all these groups. They come in and they help out. So anyhow, I think it's good. I mean, I hope we don't have any more earthquakes soon. But but anyhow, it seems like many people have looked at Taiwan. Oh, one more thing I have to say. I discovered on YouTube there's many channels. I've never watched these before, but for some reason I started watching. You know how you watch one and then they give you another one, and then they give you another one, right? I watch way too much YouTube. But I've been watching there. I discovered there's all these channels from, how do you say this? I know there's a name for it in Chinese. Basically, Chinese wives who have married Taiwanese men and are living in Taiwan. We say what? Yeah. They have many YouTube channels and they're living in Taiwan. I watched many of these, and I'd say over, all of them were very positive about Taiwan, but many of them were saying, their Chinese friends were saying, wow, how come Taiwan's buildings are so strong compared to China? Because, they were looking at the construction and the bridges and the bridges and the highways, and they're watching the videos and they were like, how can those still stay up, So I think they were saying how many of their friends in China were looking at Taiwan and saying, wow, this is amazing. How come the buildings are so strong? So anyhow, again, I think, it's good. Taiwan did pretty well. It did okay. Although I will say I'm very sad about Tailuke, Taroko. That's one of my favorite places in Taiwan. And I always tell people you need to go there and visit. I say, if you're going to see one place in Taiwan, you have to go there. But I think it's going to be a while before that is recovered. You look at the road, you look at the mountainsides, you look at even some of the hotels there. It's just really sad. So I do hope that they get that back, because I know that in Hualien, many people depend on tourism, right? Visitors. And so, yeah, I have to say, I have a friend who lives in Taipei, and they moved to Taiwan about just maybe a year ago or 6 months ago. And they'd never been to Tailuke, Taroko. And 2 weeks ago, I told them, I said, oh, you should go. They were thinking about going. I said, well, you definitely should go. In Tailuke, the Guojia Gongyuan, there's a special trail that you have to get permission, and it's way up at the top. I don't know if you know. Yeah, you have to. Yeah, and you have to apply online, and then they let you go, and it's way up on the top. And so they applied, and they got permission. And so, the earthquake was on Wednesday, right? They hiked that trail the Saturday before the earthquake. And so I was like, oh, you were so lucky, because, if they would have gone a few days later, but yeah, they were up there on Saturday, a few days just before that earthquake. So I'm glad they're safe. Yeah. Okay, so anyhow, I thought we would start with an article related to the earthquake. It says nearly 500 million NT dollars donated to help earthquake relief. Okay, so this is money that actually, that's another thing that people said. They notice in Taiwan, people are very generous about giving money to help others. What does relief mean? Yeah, it can be a verb. It can be actually a verb would be relieve, 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 right? So if I have a bad headache, 头痛, I might take, aspirin to relieve my headache, right? Or if my shoulder hurts or my knee hurts, I might take some painkillers to relieve the pain, right? Or if there's not enough water outside, we hope that there's rain to relieve the drought, right? The shortage of water. So relieve can mean to help something, to reduce some kind of pain or problem or trouble. But of course, as a means, relief can also be help or assistance. But it can also mean if you have a feeling of relief over something, what does that kind of mean? Yeah, you can relax a bit, right? So let's say you're waiting for something to happen. Okay, let's say you go to the doctor for a checkup and you think that maybe there's something really wrong with you. And the doctor checks you up and then they say, oh yeah, there's no problem. You're okay. Or it's just a small problem. You say, oh, I feel so much relief. Okay, so relief is also a feeling like where you have this worry or pressure and now it's been relaxed. It's gone or it's reduced. And so you feel relief, So it's like a feeling of something has been taken away from you in a good way. You don't feel anymore. Does everybody understand that? Okay, so why don't we say together relief. Relief. And then as a verb, RELIEVE, relieve. Relieve. Okay, so you can say these donations are helping to relieve some of the trouble or damage. Okay, so it says nearly 500 million NT dollars of donations have been received by the Taiwan Foundation for Disaster Relief in Hualien after an earthquake measuring 7.2 on the Richter scale struck the country on Wednesday last week. Okay, so of course, Richter scale is the scale that everybody uses for earthquakes. Why don't we say it together? Richter. It's spelled with a K sound. So Richter. Richter. Okay, so it struck or it hit the country on Wednesday. Okay, of course, donation is to donate. DONATE is to 捐, right? To give something. You can donate money. You can donate things, anything you want to give. So anything you give to people. So why don't we say together, to donate. To donate. Donations. Donations. Okay, so they've been received by this, I guess this would be kind of like a foundation, Ji Jinghui or something like that, for disaster relief. And a disaster is what? What's a disaster? This word? Yeah, 灾难 or, some sort of EY or whatever. Yeah, so why don't we say together, disaster. Disaster. And if we want to turn that word into a 形容词, an adjective, what do we say? Right, so it becomes DISASTROUS. So we say, wow, if something was disastrous, okay, it means it was a mess. It was terrible. Okay. Now, of course, something like the earthquake, we could say is disastrous, right? But this word gets often used in a more casual way, right? So let's say your friend is coming over and you want to cook a meal for them. And you make the dinner and everything goes wrong and the food tastes terrible. And you say, oh, this meal was disastrous, right? I tried really hard to make a good meal and it didn't go right, right? Like I know every year in America, Thanksgiving, right? People often bake a turkey, 火鸡大餐 at home. But you always hear stories about somebody and the turkey was burned, or it was overcooked or it was undercooked. And it wasn't right. It was, it was a disaster. It was disastrous. Okay, so why don't we say together, disaster. Disaster. Disastrous. Disastrous. Okay. It could be, but I guess for some people, divorce is a happy thing, I guess. Yeah, it could be a relief, yeah. Depends on the situation, I guess, yeah. So, and depends on which person wants it or doesn't want it, I guess. So, yeah. Okay, so let's read this together. Nearly 500 million NT dollars of donations have been received by the Taiwan Foundation for Disaster Relief. Let's say those two words, disaster relief. For relief in Hualien after an earthquake measuring 7.2 on the Richter scale. Richter scale struck the country on Wednesday last week. Okay, so it says here a special account had received donations from more than 120,000 sources, totaling more than 898 million NT dollars as of 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday, the foundation said yesterday. Okay, so this is from 120,000 sources. I guess a source could be a person or a company or something like that. I don't think we have to read those numbers, so let's just keep going here. It says the foundation opened the account on Thursday last week after the cabinet instructed the Ministry of Health and Welfare to establish a means to receive disaster relief donations. Okay, so this account is like what is a yeah. So an account, I think most of you have bank accounts, right? So the cabinet, what's the cabinet? What's that mean? Yeah, I've been hearing that word a lot on the news since yesterday. I turned on the TV and all I heard was nega, 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 you know, because of the new president has picked his nega, right? So yeah, why don't we say together, cabinet. Cabinet. Right. Now, cabinet has a different meaning. If it's a small C, not a big C, what is a cabinet? Yeah, it could be like a closet, well, not a chamber. Cabinet is usually like a place, like we say a book cabinet, right? Or a dish cabinet. You put your dishes there. How do you say it in Chinese? Like a weights. Yeah, I think that would be more like it. Like I think most of your houses might have a cabinet, and there might be some things in there you put in there. So why don't we say together, cabinet? Cabinet. Okay, so the cabinet instructed the Ministry of Health and Welfare to establish, and what does establish mean? Set up. What would be, there's another word that we use a lot. Starts with an F. Yeah, somebody said found, okay? So, you know, many times when you look at a company, their logo, right, it says founded in 1995, right? It means Chengli, right? When was it established? Sometimes it says founded in, sometimes it says established in, but it means to set up, to create. You know, it's a company or something like that. So why don't we say together, establish, establish, found, found. Okay. Now, of course, when we say found, it's usually like a past tense, like 过去式. So we say founded in, right? Founded in 1995 or established in 1995. Now, found, of course, also means to find something, like 找到. But yeah, so anyhow, founded, you can say my company was founded 20 years ago. Okay, so to establish a means to receive disaster relief donations. Now, what does this mean? A means, you know, we say a what? A method, yeah, a way, yeah, a means, okay? So, you know, often we say, there's an expression we say, this is a very common, we say, This is something you hear a lot in English. You can say, this is a means to an end. Has everybody heard this before? If you say something is a means to an end, what that means is this is a way to achieve a goal. An end would be a 目标, a goal, right? So if somebody say, why are you doing that? Or how come you're doing this? Or what are you doing? You say, oh, this is a means to an end. It's an expression. It means this is a way of achieving or meeting that goal. Okay? And that's a very common way of saying something like that. We use a means to an end. It kind of means that, like this is the reason I'm doing this. This, how do we say? This is supports my method of doing something. So sometimes people look at something and they're confused or not quite sure why you're doing that. And you say, oh, don't worry. This is a means to an end. Okay? So yeah, why don't we say together, a means to an end. A means to an end. Okay, so yeah. So anyhow, to establish a means, a way to receive disaster relief donations. Okay, so let's read this together. The foundation opened the account on Thursday last week after the cabinet instructed the Ministry of Health and Welfare to establish a means to receive disaster relief donations. Let's say these last three words again. Disaster relief donations. Okay. Now, of course, I forgot to mention instructed, I think means to tell someone how to do something, right? When you buy a new computer or a car or a new phone, there's always usually instructions, right? How do we use this? How do we handle it? Of course, many people like myself, often we do not read the instructions, right? We just buy it and we try to figure it out. And then somebody's like, you're like, I don't know what to do. And they're like, well, did you read the instructions? And you're like, oh, okay. So if you want to turn this into a means, it's T-I-O-N, instruction, right? Now, of course, your teachers provide instruction, right? Like right now, I'm providing some English instruction to you, means teaching, okay? Lesson, okay? But to instruct means to tell someone what to do. So they instructed the Ministry of Health and Welfare. This is what is this? The Wei Sheng Shu, or yeah, okay. Ministry is usually a bu, but anyhow, I'm sure they have the different names. Why don't we say together, instructed. Instructed. And then with a T-I-O-N, instruction. Instruction. Right. In America? That's a good question. It would be of course, it's always in America, we say we don't use the word ministry. We don't say bu. We always say the Department of Health, I guess. Yeah, DOH. Yeah, Department of Health. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So that's a photo caption. Let's go on. It says the earthquake, the most powerful to strike Taiwan in 25 years, killed 16 people and injured more than 1,000. Let's keep reading here, the next paragraph. It says, the foundation said that it received more than 362.42 million NT dollars in donations via a Land Bank of Taiwan account, 494.25 million NT dollars via Line Pay, and 41.63 million NT dollars through online fundraising platform Wabe. I've never heard of Wabe. Are you familiar with Wabe? I've never heard of that. I've heard of eBay, but not Wabe. Yeah, must be maybe it's Taiwanese. But anyhow, let's look at this. It says the earthquake. Of course, when we say earthquake, sometimes we say quake, right, for short. Sometimes there are other words that you sometimes see in the news, kind of just a really vague word that sometimes people use. They say tremor. Do you know the word tremor? Tremor means, what's tremor mean? vibration or to shake. Okay. Now, to be honest, when I say tremor, to me, it doesn't sound like a big earthquake. So me personally, I would not use this word to describe a big earthquake like this. If it was a small earthquake, I might say, oh, we felt some tremors. Or, after the big earthquake, we had many, actually, that's a good word. After, what do we call it? Aftershocks. Yeah, what is it? Yuzhen, right? So, yeah, aftershocks would be the earthquakes that come after the main earthquake. So, if it was a smaller aftershock, I might call it a tremor. I might say, oh, today we felt some tremors. But I would not usually say tremor for the really big earthquake because it's more than just a little shake. It's a real big shake. So anyhow, tremor can also be on your physical body, right? If you say there's some tremors in my hand or my hand is shaking, you could use it to describe yourself, right? But often you say he has tremors with an S, right? Okay. So, or you could simply say their hand is shaking. Okay, so why don't we say together tremor, tremor, aftershocks, aftershocks. Yeah, I read a couple days ago that Taiwan's had something like 800 aftershocks after this earthquake. Now, of course, the majority we probably don't even feel, right? But there's another word, and I think I'm spelling this right. I used to see this word a lot in the China Post, 有报. They used to love using this word. I have not seen this word as much anymore. I'll just write it here. And I think I'm spelling this right. Temblor. They used to love using this word to describe an earthquake. But it's not a very common word, and I don't see it much anymore. But for some reason, every time I read the 有报, they used to love using this word for earthquakes. But anyhow, temblor, I think that's how you pronounce it. Well, it sounds like that word a little bit, but there's no R. And so I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know where that word comes from. I wouldn't worry about it because it's not used much anymore. But yeah, these words, tremor, aftershock, are very common. So yeah, most of these aftershocks we're not feeling, right? But I have to say, after that big earthquake last Wednesday, after GRE, I felt like I was shaking all the time, right? And I didn't know, right? You're walking around, you're like, is it really shaking or not? And used to be GRE, I had I would look at water, right? If there was a cup of water or a glass of water, I would look. But this time I discovered a new, I think, more effective way. I have a fan, on the floor, a floor fan, right? And that fan is very sensitive. So anytime it shakes, the fan starts moving. And so every time it was sitting right next to me in my living room, every time I felt like it was shaking, I just look at the fan and see if the fan was shaking or not, because it was very, very sensitive. Yeah. But yeah, it was, kind of scary. Okay. So anyhow, going on here, it says, the most powerful quake to strike Taiwan in 25 years killed 25 people and injured. Of course, injured means 受伤, right? Injured more than 1,000. The foundation said it received more than, there's all these numbers here, via line pay and through online fundraising platform. Okay, so online fundraising, of course, is online, and fundraising means to raise money, right? So there's actually a word that we see a lot in, I think they do this in Taiwan too. We call it, let me write it up here. Crowdfunding. I don't know if you've heard of this before, but sometimes a company or somebody wants to raise money, and what they do is they set up a special website, and everyone can donate a little bit of money, and they just raise money from the public for something. It could be something you have a need for, or your company, and to be honest, I'm not very familiar with how it works, but I know that there's these crowdfunding websites, and you set up a special account, and then people can donate money. And it's just not like lots of money, but maybe you donate, 100块, and they donate 50块, and they donate 20块, and all these people donate a little bit of money, and then you can raise a lot of money that way. But they call it crowdfunding because crowd, C-R-O-U-W, WD is a big group of people, right? A crowd, right? We could say this is a crowd of people. So crowdfunding means that you go to the public or you go to lots of people to get funding. So why don't we say together crowdfunding? Crowdfunding. Okay. Online fundraising. Online fundraising. And platform. Platform. And you know what a platform is, right? It's what a 平台. Yeah. Now, a platform could be that, or it could be like when you go to the 高铁站 or the 火车站, you stand on a platform, right? So, yeah, that's when you wait for the train. Okay, so I'm not going to read this paragraph here because it's got too many numbers and it's mafan. But anyhow, let's read this one here. It says, the earthquake, the most powerful, let's say it again, powerful, to strike Taiwan in 25 years, killed 16 people, and injured more than 1,000. Okay, so let's go to this lower paragraph. It says, it said that the total would be updated on Monday each week as the nation's 4 major convenience store chains on Tuesday launched donations through their kiosks, but they calculate the money they receive on different schedules. Okay, so this is the total amount of donations would be updated on Monday each week. Now, convenience store, I think you know, of course, Taiwan has the world's second highest density of convenience stores. That means how many convenience stores per person, right? Or per 100 people. Number one, I think is, no, but for countries, I think number one is Korea or Japan. I forget, Korea maybe. But yeah, I know Taiwan has a lot of convenience stores. So why don't we say together, convenience store. Convenience store. And of course, convenient with a N-I-E-N-T is 方便, right? I have to say something though. I find that sometimes nowadays, today, I feel like sometimes convenience stores are not convenient because they offer almost too many services, right? How many times, I don't know about you, but many times I go into a store and I just want to buy a newspaper or something small, right? And I have to wait in line. Why? Because they're looking for somebody's package, right? You know, there's all these packages. It's like going to the Yochu, right? The post office, and you're waiting in this long line for one person to get their package, you know? So sometimes I'm like, oh, not 不是很方便, right? Yeah. So maybe I'm just impatient. I don't know. Yeah. So anyhow, these 4 major convenience store chains on Tuesday launched donations through their kiosks. Now, this word K-I-O-S-K, what does that mean? Yeah, you're doing this. Yeah, it's like a little booth. Like, I guess we could say a phone booth would be a kind of kiosk. But in Taiwan, we have those little IBAN stations, right? Is it called IBAN, I think, right? At 7-Eleven, where you want to buy a ticket or you want to get a taxi. We could call that a kiosk too. So a kiosk could be a little station, a little thing you go to, or it could be actually something you almost walk into. Or sometimes we use it also for like, like you have these little 路边摊位, right? Like a stand or stall, S-T-A-L-L. We could also sometimes call that a kiosk. So it's like a little station. Like if you go to lots of now in Taiwan shopping malls and 百货公司, besides the main stores, they often have these little kiosks around selling stuff or promoting something. So it's like a little tanwei or little station. Okay, so why don't we say together, kiosk. Kiosk. Okay, so you can make a donation through these kiosks, but they calculate the money. Okay, and what does calculate mean? Count or to figure out, right? Now, if you want to, nowadays when you want to figure something out, we use a calculator, right? So that's C-A-L-C-U-L-T-A-E-O-R, I believe. O-R, yeah, calculator, T-O-R is the G, what is that? Yeah. So, I had some friends that just came, I went to high school with their children. They just came back to Taiwan for the first time in 30 years. They haven't been here in 30 years. And we were at a store and we were at a restaurant and they were trying to figure out the bill. And they said, oh yeah, in the old days, people in Taiwan used to use abacus. You know what an abacus is? Yeah, but you don't see that much anymore because in Taiwan, the children all had to learn how to use that, right? Before, but they don't teach that anymore, right? You don't need to. So we call that a A-B-A-C-U-S, abacus, okay? So yeah, do any of you know how to use an abacus? Anyone? No one? Really? Okay. I think it's kind of cool, right? I mean, you watch people and they're going really fast and they can figure it out. I never learned how to use one, but it seemed kind of cool. Why don't we say together, abacus? Abacus. Okay. So yeah, people sometimes calculate money or they calculate things with an abacus or they use a calculator. Okay. So they calculate the money received on different schedules. Okay. So yeah, anyhow. So let's read this together. It said that the total would be updated on Monday each week. As the nation's 4 major convenience store chains let's say those 3 words together. Convenience store chains on Tuesday launched donations through their kiosks. But they calculate the money they receive on different schedules. Okay. So it says here the money would be used for 4 main purposes: disaster assistance, emergency medical services, shelter and resettlement, and restoration and reconstruction, the foundation said, adding that it would be allocated as specialized projects according to reports on need by agencies and non-governmental organizations. Okay, so let's look at this. There's several things here. It says the money, these donations, would be used for 4 main purposes. Disaster assistance, I think you know that, of course, to help people during the disaster. So you assist them, you provide assistance. Emergency medical services, okay, that's obviously people get injured or they have other health needs. So emergency medical services. Shelter and resettlement. We've said this word before. What is a shelter? Yeah, something to give you safety or covering or protection. A house is a kind of shelter, right? A tent is a shelter. There's many kinds of shelters. And of course, a shelter can be also a place where people go for help. Like, for example, stray animals, dogs and cats, right? Often they get sent to a stray animal shelter. It's a place where they are kept, okay? So why don't we say together, shelter. Shelter. What does this word resettlement mean? Yeah. Now, to settle, of course, means to settle down, right? To live there. But if you resettle somebody, I think usually what it means is to put them in a new house, a new place to live, right? So when I think of the way of resettling, it actually means to move their home. In a way, if you move your house, let's say you move to a new house, you can say, I resettled in a new house. But this word usually gets used in a bigger, more serious way, not just moving house, but like if there's a disaster and you have to move from your town or your community to another community, we call that resettling. So sometimes people resettle to a new country or a new city or something like that. So why don't we say together, resettlement. Resettlement. Okay. And then it says restoration and reconstruction. Now, of course, restoration comes from the word to restore, right? R-E-S-T-O-R-E. Okay. Now, restore, we can restore many things, right? If there's a typhoon and we don't have electricity, then we have to wait for the Taidien to restore our electricity, right? To bring it back. But so restoration it's a very broad word, right? There's many things we can restore. Our roads, our highways, our electricity, our water, to restore things. So why don't we say together, restoration. Restoration. You know, often when you find, maybe you're going through your house, or you go through someone else's house, or you go to a sale, you buy an old item like an antique. What is that? 古董, right? 古董, right? And you have to restore it, right? Maybe it's broken. Maybe it's missing a piece. Or you buy an old car and you want to restore the car. So you say, right now, this company is specialty is car restoration, okay? I have to tell you, I drive this very old car, and years ago, I damaged the bumper, which I learned is, what is it? Bumper is 保险杆, right? Yeah, okay. So I damaged the bumper. I could not find a new bumper for this car. I tried everywhere. I looked everywhere. I went online. Everywhere I tried. Finally, one of my friends drives the same kind of car, and he says, oh, I know where to get a brand new bumper. They make these for this car. So he ordered one. So yesterday, finally, I went to the shop, and they had it there waiting for me. And in 45 minutes or 30 minutes, they put on this brand new bumper on my car. And I was like, oh, I've been waiting for this for years. So they restored my car. I feel like my car has been restored with a brand new bumper. You know, it was amazing. The bumper, which was brand new, wasn't secondhand. It didn't come from another car. It was only 4,000 kuai, which I thought was a great deal, because I thought, you know, if they would have charged me 8,000 kuai, I would have paid it, because this bumper is impossible to find. So now I'm driving very carefully because I don't want somebody hit my bumper. So yeah, yeah. So anyhow, you know what a bumper? You know, a bumper. I'll just write that for. Okay, so you know, in your car you have a bumper in the front and you have a back bumper, right? And you know, bump means to hit, right? So a bumper is that thing there, yeah. So yeah, I don't know if I ever told you how my bumper got broken. I was driving down Wenxing Lu and a Mercedes-Benz. I was stopped. I was waiting for the Hong Lü Deng, and a Mercedes-Benz hit me from behind, and it was very funny because we were both in a rush, right? I could tell he was in a rush and I was in a rush. I had an appointment I had to go to, an important appointment. And he looked at it and he said, I'll give you 6,000 kuai for that bumper. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, how about 7,000 kuai? And he's like, okay. And so he pulled out the money and gave it to me. And we're like, okay, see you, bye-bye. So I made money on that. Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, I think both of us, you know, because if you call the police and then they come and it's home mafan and all this stuff. So he was just like, I'll pay you cash right now. I was like, okay, yeah. So anyhow, restoration, and this is a good word. Reconstruction means what? To rebuild, yeah. So another word would be rebuild, B-U-I-L-D, to rebuild, reconstruct, to rebuild. You know, during an earthquake, of course, there's many things that have to be reconstructed. Buildings. I was very impressed in Tailuge. It was a Suhua Gonglu. There was a bridge that completely collapsed, and within 3 days, they had replaced the bridge. I was really impressed. They came in and put in a new bridge, and there are already cars moving on. So they reconstructed the bridge. Okay? So let's read that together. Reconstruction. Reconstruction. Okay, so there's a good word here. It says this is where the money is going to go for these purposes. It says the money, okay, it says that the money, would be allocated as special projects. Okay, this is a good word. What does allocate mean? I don't think, designate, okay. It means to give out, okay. It means to kind of, there's a couple words here that are good, very similar. So he just said the word to designate. There's another very good word. It's a very funny sounding word, but we say to earmark. Okay. So to designate, to allocate, to earmark. Basically what it means is to say this is going there. It's specifically saying where something is going to be used or where something's going to go. So if you have this money, right, and you say, well, how am I going to use this money? Maybe it's your own money. And how am I going to spend this money? You say, well, I'm designating this money for investment. I want to invest in stocks. Or I'm designating this money to pay for my my children's education. So it means I'm going to allocate. I'm going to decide specifically how something is going to be used. Now, it doesn't have to always be money. You can allocate labor, or time, or we say human resources, 人才, right? You can allocate or designate something. But this word earmark is kind of funny. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure where it comes from. I'm sure there's a story behind this. But earmark is also the same idea. If you earmark something, you say, I'm going to earmark this money for education. I'm going to designate. I'm going to allocate. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Maybe. Cows, they have that, but I don't know why what the connection is to money. Anyhow, maybe I'm sure there's a good story there behind that word. So why don't we say this as a 动词, to allocate. To allocate. To designate. Now remember this word, the designate has a G, has a G sound, right? It's not design, but with a G. So let's say designate. To designate. To earmark. To earmark. Right, so these words all have that same idea. So here it says the money would be allocated or designated or earmarked as special projects. Okay, so they're going to use it. They're going to say this money is used as a specialized project according to reports on needs by agencies. And so these non-government agencies or organizations and other agencies, they're going to report on what needs they have. We need this, we need that, we need this. And then they will designate, they will allocate that money as these special projects for those needs, to meet those needs. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So yeah, those are some good words here. Okay, so let's read this together. The money would be used for 4 main purposes. Purposes. Disaster assistance. Emergency medical services. Shelter and resettlement. And restoration and reconstruction. Reconstruction. The foundation said, adding that it would be allocated as specialized projects according to reports on need by agencies and non-governmental organizations. Right. I'm used to saying often they just say non-government, but here they say non-governmental. It's the same idea. Okay. Same meaning. I think it's similar to Taiwan. I think that you have to be a registered, I'm not sure, but I think you have to be, if you're going to be if you're going to accept donations, there have to be some sort of accountability with the government. So I think I know for, like we say charity, 慈善, you actually have to register with the government as a charity. But I don't know if it's completely regulated by the government, because we have that. Remember, I used that word crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, I think anyone can start a crowdfunding platform. Although I think these crowdfunding websites will approve or not approve for something. So I don't know. To be honest, I'm not sure. I know that there is some oversight. There is some accountability to the government. You have to tell the government what you're doing, because obviously the government, I think the government's concerned about one thing. If you're just bringing in lots of money and you're not using it for donations or charity, the government wants to do what? They want to tax it. they want to, 报税, right? So that you can't just take money from people and then make money and that's it, right? So anyhow, I think that there is some issues with that. Yeah. So, sorry? So I think that it's like Taiwan. I think if you accept donations, there is some government regulations about who can do that. But I do think with online crowdfunding today, I think that some of that is outside the government. People can just get money. But then, of course, if you donate money to some of these groups, you don't really know if it's going to go to the right purpose or not. So I think this is where sometimes if people donate money, they want to donate money to organizations that are approved by the government, right? Because otherwise, 谁知道, right? Who knows? I know in America, there's been some cases where, let's say somebody had a terrible accident, right? Or there was a disaster, and somebody started crowdfunding, and they accepted lots of money to help. But then later on, people found out that money was not being used directly for that purpose. It was being used for other things. And of course, there was a problem because they gave money for this, but it was used for that. So I think that there's some regulation, but it's not probably completely regulated. So yeah. So if anyone asks you for donations, it's good to be careful and make sure it's a good organization, someone you trust. Yeah. And I think that's also where, I know, for example, through 台中美国商会, which I'm involved with, we provide a report. Here's where the money came in, and here's where the money is going. Here's how much money we spent. This is where the money all went, so that people can see very openly how we're using that money. Yeah, so I think that's important. Okay. Now, of course, here, when we say non-governmental organizations, what do we often say for short? NGO. So if you hear someone say N, you see a big NGO, it stands for non-government organizations. So, there's many NGOs in Taiwan and America. Okay. And other places. Okay, so it says in other news, okay, so this is a related story. In other news, a cat owned by a woman surnamed Kang, who died while attempting to rescue it from a building in Hualien that partially collapsed during the earthquake, was spotted alive in the building on Tuesday, the Hualien County Fire Department said. Now, I heard about this woman. I heard she was originally from Taichung, right? Wasn't she originally from Taichung? Yeah. And she was a, Fu Zhao Shou or something in Hualien, right? She was a teacher in Hualien. So, yeah, I heard that. Only 33 years old, I think. But anyhow, I think you know the story, right? She got out safely, and then she went back into the building to rescue her cat. And she was killed in Yuzhen, in aftershock, which is obviously a terrible thing, a tragedy. So it says this cat owned by this woman who died while she died while attempting to rescue it from a building that partially collapsed during the earthquake. Okay, so partially collapsed. I remember during Jiari, they use this word a lot. Partially collapsed is 半岛, that's the word. You always hear this word 半岛, right? Which means if the building is completely gone, it's destroyed, then it's, gone. But if the building falls, it's half, like this building, it's leaning over, then it's partially collapsed. We don't say completely collapsed, we say partially, because partially means, 部分, right? In part. So why don't we say together, partially. Partially. Okay. Was spotted alive. This cat was spotted alive. Okay. Now, if you spot something, that means you what? Right. You see it, or you see it very quickly, or you notice it. So sometimes you say, oh, I spotted him in the crowd. It means like you suddenly see something, or you see something for a small moment. Okay. So, oh, I spotted him. I saw him. Okay. So was spotted alive in the building. Okay. So they saw the cat. I know there was one cat they rescued from a window upstairs. But I think there's another cat that they've seen running around, and anyhow. So I don't know how many cats there are. Lots of cats. So let's read this. In other news, a cat owned by a woman surnamed Kang who died while attempting to rescue it. Let's say it again. Attempting to rescue it from a building in Hualien that partially collapsed during the earthquake, was spotted alive in the building on Tuesday. The Hualien County Fire Department said. Okay, you all know what surname means, right? Surname means like your Xing, right? So I would be surname He, I guess. Yeah. Why don't we say together, surnamed? Surnamed. Okay. So it says here, Kang's cat was seen when another orange tabby was found stuck behind bars in a window on the 7th floor of the building amid demolition work. Let's read this too. While watching a video of the rescue, people spotted another orange cat in another part of the building. Okay, now this word tabby is very interesting. It's specific for a kind of cat, the pattern on their fur. You know, an orange tabby is, you know, the cats that are orange juice, and they have that interesting pattern on them. I may be wrong here, but I've been told, I thought I heard that an orange tabby cats are all male. I don't know if that's true, but I heard only males are orange tabbies. I have to go home Google that, but that's what I've been told. Maybe I'm wrong, but for some reason, like there's a genetic something or another. But I thought that's what I heard. They have to be completely orange. But do you know this? Do you understand what I mean when I say orange tabby? A tabby is, I don't know how you say this in Chinese, but it's a kind of 橘色的 cat with the pattern on the fur is a special pattern, and we call that a tabby. Anyhow, go look it up online. You'll see pictures, I'm sure. It's a very common cat. You see them everywhere. Okay, so why don't we say together, orange tabby. Orange tabby. Okay, so I think maybe you saw on TV the cat was stuck between the window and the bars on the window, and so the firemen went up there and they cut the bars open and rescued the cat. So it was stuck behind bars in a window on the 7th floor of the building amid, of course, amid means in the middle of, right? During, maybe that's a better word, during demolition work. And demolition means what? Destruction, to tear down. It comes from the word demolish, right? So if we say to demolish, okay, to demolish something means to completely destroy, to tear down. So we say to demolish. Now you could demolish something, or you can say something was demolished by something, right? You can say the typhoon demolished the building, or the building was demolished by the typhoon. Okay, so you can go either way. So why don't we say together, demolish. Demolish means completely destroy. When you say demolish, it means it's gone. So why don't we say together, demolition. Demolition. Right, now, of course, this is not a storm. This is they're actually working to demolish this building. Okay, so while watching a video of the rescue, people spotted, here's the word again, spotted. They saw another orange cat in another part of the building. Okay, so let's read this. Kang's cat was seen when another orange tabby was found stuck behind bars in a window on the 7th floor of the building amid demolition work. while watching a video of the rescue, people spotted another orange cat in another part of the building. Okay, so let's read these last two sentences. As Kong's family confirmed that it was indeed her cat, the fire department said it had set a trap at the site to try to rescue the cat. So if you say something is indeed, it means it really is, right? If someone says, is that something you did? And you said, yeah, indeed, that was what I did. It means I really did that. 真的, yeah. So if you say something is indeed, that's indeed the way it is, or indeed the truth, means it really is, okay? So you could say Kong's family confirmed that this really was her cat, was indeed her cat, okay? So it's the same idea. You know what a trap is, right? Of course, here it's a trap for an animal trap. You know, usually it's a cage, and the animal goes inside, and then the door closes, and yeah. So this trap, of course, doesn't harm the animal. Some traps do harm animals, like mouse trap, yeah. Yeah, okay, so let's read this together. Kong's family confirmed that it was indeed her cat. The fire department said it had set a trap at the site to try to rescue the cat. Okay. Any questions about this article? Actually, I think there's a picture of the cat. Yeah. Okay. That's an orange tabby. I told you about orange tabby. You know, it has this, the fur has this kind of appearance, like these stripes on the tail. This would be an orange tabby, yeah. But I don't know, I need to Google that, but I was told that orange tabbies are only male cats. But I could be wrong, yeah. So anyhow, yeah. Cats are funny. I noticed in the last 5 years, 10 years, I noticed cats have become more and more popular in Taiwan. You know, it used to be for pets. It was mostly dogs, right? But I thought I read recently in Taiwan, there's now more pet cats than there are pet dogs, or something like that. Or maybe pet cats are growing. There's more owners. The number of owners is growing faster than pet dogs. I don't know. But yeah, cats are kind of funny. I think, you know, to be honest, I think cats are, I mean, I love dogs, but I think cats in some ways are probably more, they're suitable for Taiwan's, you know, many people live in small apartments, and cats are very, they take care of themselves, right? But dogs, you have to take them out for walks, and it's a lot of mafan, right? But cats are kind of, for a small apartment, a cat's a little bit more easy to take care of, yeah. But in America, there's a funny, sometimes I go online, you read about animal owners, pet owners, and they say with cats, you know, they have their personalities. Their gushing is very interesting. They say for owners, they say, you don't pick the cat picks you. You know what I mean? Like if the cat likes you, then it'll accept you as their owner. But if it doesn't like you, it's fine. You know, so that you don't pick the cat picks you. Yeah. So anyhow, hopefully the cat's okay. I have to say before we go to the next story that I watched so many videos. You know, I've been watching these videos and I've been sending them to all my friends, you know, in other places and other countries about this earthquake. Of all the videos, and I'm sure you've seen this video that I watched. I mean, there's many. Some are shocking, some are amazing, but of all the videos that I watched, the one that moved me the most was that one. I'm sure you've seen it, of the it's the 月子中心 in Taipei, right? Where all the nurses, the 护士, you know, are protecting the babies. I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. But that video really, it went all over the world. You know, I was watching websites where they show that video, and it went from, you know, G1, and the views of that video just keep going up and up and up and up, because people watch that video. It's a very short video, but it's I think a lot of people watch that and they feel 很感动, right? about these nurses, protecting these babies, and they're not panicking, right? They're very professional about it. They get all the baby cribs together and they keep them from shaking, and so yeah, it's again, I think it shows a good side to Taiwan. Yeah. Okay. I saw another story here today. I was reading the newspaper and I thought, wow, this is weird. I thought this is one I have to read. When I read this, I thought, 很可怕. So, in Taiwan, sometimes we have problems with insects, right? What is an insect? What? Yeah. There's many kinds of insects, right? Anything with 6 legs, right? Okay. So, insect. Like the worst insect that I hate is a mosquito, right? 蚊子, right? Once they get in your house, oh, it's terrible. So why don't we say together, insect. Insect. Right. So generally we say insects. Well, I think they all have 6 legs, right? But yeah, here, so this is an invasive insect. This is an insect that people don't like. So when we say invasive, what does this mean? Well, it actually means that insect does not come from here. It came from somewhere else. So it like invaded Taiwan. We always talk about the China invading Taiwan. This is an insect that invaded Taiwan. So there are many invasive animals or species that did not originate from here. Now, if an animal or an insect is from here, let me write this for you. We say it is, actually we use this word for people too, indigenous, okay? Or we could say native, okay? So we have indigenous or native plants, animals, insects, and even people, right? Like, that's why we say 原住民, right? Indigenous people. But if they're not from here, we could say they're invasive. Now, we don't usually say invasive for people, but we could say that for animals or plants. Like, it was very interesting. I don't know if I told you, when I went to Hawaii one time, my friend took me, we went hiking, and he pointed out all the trees and plants. He said, these are not from Hawaii. They came in from other countries and other places. Not recently, but maybe even hundreds of years ago. And they just came to Hawaii. And of course, Hawaii, things grow, like Taiwan, things grow very easily, right? If you take any plant and you plant it here, it'll grow. So there's many invasive plants and animals too. I noticed in Taiwan, there's a kind of a bird. We call it a minor bird. You see them everywhere now. They're about this tall and they're black and they have a white, and they're very smart. And some minor birds talk. They're actually good talkers. They can speak like a parrot. But I notice now there's minor birds everywhere in Taiwan. You see them on the roads, and they're very smart. They imitate other birds. So sometimes when a bird lands near my apartment and I listen to him, and he's imitating all these other birds, I listen to him and he's going through one bird after another. So that's an invasive bird. He doesn't come from Taiwan. Okay, so why don't we say together, invasive. Invasive. And then the opposite, indigenous. Now this is a J sound, so it's a J. So let's say again, indigenous. Indigenous. Native. Native. Okay, so here we have an invasive stink bug, agency offering invasive stink bug cookery lessons. Okay, that's what caught my attention. Cookery lessons, how to cook these stink bugs. Now, I don't know if you know I don't know how we say this in Chinese, a stink toe. Okay, does everybody know what that is? It's yeah, but it smells, I guess it stinks. What does stink mean? Chou, right? If something is stinky, S-T-I-N-K-Y, then it smells bad, right? We have, what's the most famous stinky product in Taiwan? Stinky tofu, right? Chou tofu, right? So everyone says, have you tried stinky tofu? So, or tofu. In America, they say tofu because it's spelled with a T, but yeah, tofu. So stink or stinky. Okay, stink is a 名词. Stinky is a 形容词. Now, cookery is really just another word for cooking, okay? Cookery sounds a little bit more 专业, right? Professional. Sometimes we say, there's another word we use, a 形容词 we use often for cooking. Oops. Actually, no. It's a word, culinary, yes. Culinary. So, when you go to culinary school, sometimes we say cooking school, right? But we often say culinary school or even culinary art. It's like the art of cooking, how to cook something. It doesn't mean it's like a 艺术品, but it's the art, it's the skill of cooking. So we say culinary art or culinary school or culinary lessons or culinary, yeah. So this word culinary means cooking, or here they say cookery, okay? So why don't we say together, cookery, cookery. And then that word over there, culinary, culinary. Okay, so it means cooking, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do, but I never use it, so. Why? Because it's so easy to buy stuff outside, right? I go to the supermarket and they already have rice, it's already ready to go, so I think, too much 麻烦, yeah. But yeah, okay. So it says here, after years of trying to control the invasive lychee giant stink bug population by spraying and offering bounties, the Forest and Nature Conservation Agency on Tuesday encouraged people to join its efforts to eradicate the insect by learning how to cook and eat them, which I thought was 很可怕, right? But who knows? Maybe it's a good method, right? So this is kind of funny. So anyhow, it says after years, okay, they've tried for many years to control, okay, they want to limit, they want to control this invasive lychee giant stink bug. Now, you know what a lychee is 荔枝. So it's a 荔枝 giant, means big, stink bug, okay? So it's a specific kind of bug. Bug, of course, is insect, right? So if you say bug, it could mean insect, or it could also mean if you bug someone, what's another way? If a 动词, what does that mean? Bother, If you say, stop bugging me, stop bothering me, okay? But here, of course, it's an insect. Okay, so the lychee giant stink bug population. Now, of course, population, usually we use it like 人口, right? But here we could also talk about an insect or an animal. What's the population of dogs in Taiwan, or stink bugs, or cats? How many? Okay, so they're trying to control the population of these, the number of these, by what? By spraying. Okay, you know what spraying means, right? To pun, right? So I think they're spraying insecticide, yeah. And what? Offering bounties. Now, this is a very funny word. Bounty, B-O-U-N-T-Y. What is a bounty? Does anyone? Yeah. So if you want someone to do something or catch something and you give them a bounty, it means like a reward. I'll tell you where I think of this. I'm sure many of you used to watch 牛仔, cowboy movies, right? Western movies. And in the old days, like 150 years ago or more, if they had a criminal, right, who was running loose, the government would offer a bounty, a reward, if you caught them. And sometimes you would see these posters that said, wanted, dead or alive, right? Wanted, dead or alive. And if you catch this person dead or alive, we will pay you money for this person. That's called a bounty, okay? And there's actually a job, we would call these people, it's called a bounty hunter. A bounty hunter is somebody who does, this is their job. That's how they make money for themselves, is they go around looking for these people to catch them, and then they get the money from the government. And yes, and the funny thing is, bounty hunters still exist today. There's actually still bounty hunters. Now, of course, it's not like a long time ago where you would just shoot people, but people who the police are trying to arrest, or maybe sometimes people arrested and then they in Taiwan we say what, 找保, right? They pay bail, but then they leave. They can't find them. They disappear. So the government offers a bounty to catch these people. So they're kind of like licensed by the government to go find these people. And when they catch them, they take them and they get the money from the government. So we call those bounty hunters. Okay. So, yeah. So why don't we say together, bounty, bounty, bounty hunter. Okay. So here it's a bounty not for a person, but for stink bugs. Okay, so it says here the Forestry and Nature Conservation Agency. This is a government agency. Now, forestry means what? Like forest, which is sunling, right? So forestry is that whole industry of growing trees or cutting trees down, and so we call that forestry. Why don't we say together, forestry? Forestry. And it says nature conservation. What does conservation mean? To protect or to save, to keep, right? If you conserve something, for example, we say, especially nowadays with water, it seems like every year we have a water shortage. So it's important to conserve water. It means don't waste it. 不要浪费, to save it, to keep it, okay? So why don't we say it together? This is with CONSERVE, conserve. Conserve. So people say it's important to conserve energy, conserve water, conserve electricity. So here it's conservation becomes a 名词, but here they're talking about nature, not water. Of course, water, I guess, is part of that. So this is a government agency. So they encourage people to join its efforts, to join its work, to eradicate the insect. Now, what is this? I don't think we've ever learned this word before, but what does this word eradicate mean? Destroy, yes, to wipe out. Okay? If you want to completely destroy something or wipe it out, we say to eradicate. Now, unfortunately, sometimes in wartime or sometimes we talk about a city or people getting eradicated, but often this word is used for animals or insects or disease, okay? Because I think you remember, for example, I think the disease smallpox has been eradicated, okay? How do you say smallpox? Yeah, it used to be a very serious problem. In fact, maybe you got a shot for it, right? But smallpox has been eradicated. It means it's not eliminated. Yeah, it's gone. Okay. Now, often if we see an insect or an animal that's causing trouble, we call that a pest. And so when you have a pest, what do you want to do? You want to eradicate the pest. Does everybody know what a pest is? P-E-S-T? Pest is yeah. It's an animal, but often an insect that causes trouble. It's not a good thing. It's something you want to get rid of. Yeah, an elephant could. Elephant? 大象. It could be if it damages crops. So in the right situation, a normal animal could become a pest, right? Because it's causing damage to something. It's causing trouble. Now, obviously, elephants are normally good animals, but if there were too many elephants or they were destroying an area, then maybe they become a pest. But when I think of a pest, I think of 蚊子, right? Mosquitoes or cockroaches or what? Mouse. Yeah, mouse would be a pet. A pest, not a pet. Well, it could be a pet, but pest. Yeah, a mouse. 老鼠. So something that causes trouble. And often when you have that, you want to eradicate it. You want to get rid of it. Like I know in cities like New York, right? There are problems with rats, 大老鼠, especially in the subway, right? And so the government's really trying to trying to kill these rats because, rats, they can multiply very quickly. They grow, very fast. Okay, so why don't we say together, eradicate. Eradicate. Now, if you want to turn this into a 名词, it's eradication, T-I-O-N. Why don't we say together, eradication? Eradication. Okay, so they're encouraging people to join its efforts to eradicate this insect by learning how to cook and eat them. I don't know. You know, you don't hear people, okay, we have problems with zanglang, right? But nobody says we should cook and eat them, right? You know, they're big too. Some of them are, but yeah, I couldn't eat those. But they say insects are good protein, right? Protein is danbai. Yeah. So yeah, it's yeah. I know some, I've had, okay, if you ask me what insects have you eaten before, I've had honeybees, honeybees, and I've had grasshoppers, the yeah. Trying to think if I've had anything else. I think just those two, and they were okay. They were okay. They were good. Like shrimp is like eating shrimp. Okay. Of the stink bug, I think I have. I think it's about this big. It has these long antennas, and I think the back has these spots on them, these dots. These, I think that's a stink bug. I think. But I'm not sure. I have to see. Okay, so anyhow, let's read this. After years of trying to control the invasive lychee giant stink bug, let's say it again. Invasive lychee giant stink bug population by spraying and offering bounties. Let's say it again. Offering bounties. The Forestry and Nature Conservation Agency on Tuesday encouraged people to join its efforts to eradicate the insect by learning how to cook and eat them. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure YouTube, that's why you go to YouTube, learn how to cook and eat something. Actually, this is not the first time I've heard this kind of thing. In I think it's the Pacific Ocean, they have a kind of fish that's called a lionfish, and it's very poisonous. It's very beautiful. It has these kind of these spurs. It's about this big, but they're very poisonous. If you touch them, it causes a very painful sting. And they got over to the Caribbean Ocean on the other side, and they started multiplying. And so the government started they encouraged restaurants to catch those fish and serve them at restaurants, because I think to eat them they're actually pretty good to eat. So they would pay people, they would pay divers to catch these fish and send them to the restaurant, and people would eat them. And I know in America, maybe it's not really a pest, but they do like to eat, like Taiwan also, they eat rattlesnakes. There's a kind of that has they actually have a cooking contest, like a 比赛, to see who can make better rattlesnake, and they cook it. And of course, everybody says it tastes like chicken, but but yeah. Okay, so it says here, lychee giant stink bugs, which were first spotted on Taiwan's main island in 2009, are commonly found during the summer on trees belonging to the soapberry family, including longan, I guess we say, lychees, flame gold rain trees, and wingleaf soapberries. Okay, so these are kinds of trees. Now, these kind of trees all belong to they call it soapberry. I don't know how you say this in Chinese, but it's a kind of tree. And so this tree, this family of trees includes, of course, we say longan, but in Chinese it would be longyan, right? Yeah. Dragon eye. Yeah, some people call it dragon eye. Lychee or, lychee. I've seen this spelled Litchi. I think this gets spelled in different ways. I've seen it spelled this way before too. Lychee. So lychee, lychee, you hear different ways of spelling, different ways of saying it. So yeah, lychees, flame gold rain trees. I'm not sure if this is what we call flame tree. In Taiwan, there's a kind of tree that turns red or orange, and it looks like almost like it's on fire. That's why they call it a flame tree, because it has this flame like fire. But it has these, yeah. I think the tree comes from Africa or somewhere. But anyhow, so we call it flame gold rain tree and wingleaf soapberries. Okay, it's another kind of tree. Okay, so these bugs like to sit on these trees. Okay, let's see this. So this only arrived. These stink bugs only arrived in 2009, so not too long ago. Okay, so let's read this. Lychee giant stink bugs, which were first spotted on Taiwan's main island in 2009, are commonly found during the summer on trees belonging to the soapberry family, including longans, lychees, flame gold rain trees, and wingleaf soapberries. Okay, soapberries. Okay, now commonly, of course, means we could say widely found, commonly found, often found. It means they're very, you see them all everywhere. This is where they usually are seen, or usually seen. Okay, it says here, as a defense mechanism, the bugs release a corrosive, stinky liquid that can burn through leaves and fruit, which has in the past few years become an increasing problem for Taiwan's longan and lychee farmers. Okay, now defense mechanism, basically, what does that mean? If an animal, or even a person, I guess you could say, has a defense mechanism, what does that basically mean? Right. It's a way to protect yourself. It's a method to protect yourself. So some animals have a natural defense mechanism, right? Like, I'll give you a great example. They don't have these in Taiwan, but does everybody know what a skunk is? S-K-U-N-K? What is this? How do you say it in Chinese? Yeah, it's like an animal, looks like a squirrel, looks a little bit like, but they're black and white. And when to defend themselves, they release this terrible smelling smell, a skunk. In America, especially at nighttime, sometimes when you're driving your car, if you have your windows down in the summertime, sometimes you smell this smell, and it comes from these skunks. Yeah. And so, yeah, they're kind of cute. The animals are cute. But if you make them scared, they spray this liquid, and it smells terrible. Okay, so why don't we say together, skunk. Skunk. Okay, so that's a defense mechanism. So here it says the bugs release a corrosive, stinky liquid, or we could say fluid, F-L-U-I-D, fluid, liquid, same thing, okay? Okay, what does corrosive mean? Right, so this word, if we say to corrode, what is the most common corrosion that we see? If we want to, yes, exactly. So the word rust. What is rust in Chinese? Yeah. So if something is rusty, right? Like you have a piece of metal and it turns rusty, or your car is rusty. So rust is a kind of corrosion. And so if you want to turn this into a 名词, we spell it C-O-R-R-O-S-I-O-N. Sorry, that's an O. Yeah. Rewrite it. Corrosion. So rust is corrosion, okay? So if you have something like that's corrosive, it will eat through something. So for example, a battery, 电池, can be corrosive, right? If that liquid in that inside the battery, if it gets old, maybe you've seen that before and it can corrode. It's actually, you shouldn't get it on your skin or anything like that. So why don't we say together, to corrode. To corrode. Corrosion. Corrosion. And as a 形容词, corrosive. Corrosive. And then, of course, let's just say this word because it's such a common word. Rust. Rust. Rusty. Rusty. Okay. So corrosive, stinky liquid that can burn through leaves and fruit, which in the past few years have become an increasing problem. So these growing the longyan and li zhi, these farmers are having problems with this bug. Okay, so let's read this together. As a defense mechanism, the bugs release a corrosive, stinky liquid that can burn through leaves and fruit, which has in the past few years become an increasing problem for Taiwan's longyan and lychee farmers. Okay, I'll show you that picture later. It says, to control them, local governments have tried with varying degrees of success using drones to spray orchards with saponins, bitter plant-derived organic chemicals, and offering bounties for the insects' eggs. That's interesting. So they pay you for the eggs, the tan of the animal. So to control them, it says local governments have tried with varying degrees of success. When we say varying degrees of success, this is a very common expression. It means that sometimes it's successful, but sometimes it's not. Like the success is not even. It's not how do we say? It's not a stable success. It means sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower, up and down. So we say varying degrees of success. So if someone says, well, how did that project go? How did your plan go? You say, well, we've had varying degrees of success, meaning sometimes it's okay, maybe sometimes it's not okay. So why don't we say together, varying degrees of success. Varying degrees of success. Now this word vary, V-A-R-Y, what does vary mean? To change, right? If you say this, it varies, like someone might say, well, what's the temperature in Taiwan like? And you say, well, it varies, right? Sometimes it's hot in the summer, it's very hot in the summer, and in the winter it's quite chilly, right? So the weather may vary, or the weather may vary between daytime and evening, right? Like recently in the day it's been a bit warm, but evening it's been quite cool. So the weather varies, okay? So why don't we say together, vary? Okay, so that's a good word. So varying degrees of success using drones, okay, this urenji, to spray orchards with saponins. Now that's a chemical of some sort. Orchard, what's an orchard? Yeah, it's a place where there's lots of trees and you grow fruit usually, usually fruit. So why don't we say together, orchards. Orchards. Okay, so this chemical is a bitter means what? Cool, right? Bitter, plant-derived. Now, derived means what? This is a good word. Right, if you get something from something, we say it's derived from. It means it comes from. Okay, so you can say, this word is a very broad word. For example, you could say, this idea was derived from that. Okay, you could say this food is derived from that plant. Or you could say this music was derived from that other kind. So anything that comes from something else is derived from. Okay, so it's a very broad, useful word. So here it means when we say plant derived, we have a hyphen. It means it comes from plants. It's derived from plants. We could say animal derived, plant derived, whatever. But yeah, derived. So plant derived organic chemical. And what's organic? This is a good word. Yeah, usually we say 有机, right? Yeah, organic, okay? Like there's a lot of organic food now. So why don't we say together, plant-derived, organic. Okay, and it says the government is also offering bounties for the insects' eggs. So, I mean, one thing that's good is that they're using these chemicals. This sounds like a natural chemical, right? It's not some man-made, chemical that might, cause more harm. So it's a natural chemical. Okay, so let's read this. To control them, local governments have tried with varying degrees of success using drones to spray orchards with saponins, bitter plant-derived organic chemicals, and offering bounties for the insects' eggs. Okay. Now it goes on. It says, however, since lychee giant stink bugs are edible, okay, and that's interesting, and a good source of protein, there we are, people can also help eradicate the insects by eating them. Li Dingzhong, deputy head of the agency's Jiayi branch office, said on Tuesday. Okay, so first of all, what's this word mean? Eatable. Yeah, basically, edible means eatable. You can eat it. Now, if something is not, you can't eat it, what do we say? Inedible. So we add an I-N. It becomes one word. Inedible. I-N, edible. Now, let's say you go to a restaurant and they give you the food and it's terrible. And you call the waiter and you say, this food is inedible. Means I can't eat this. It's so bad. Okay, that's a way we say that. Now, of course, some things are in reality actually inedible. You can't eat them. They're dangerous. You should not eat them. Okay, so why don't we say together, edible. Edible. Inedible. Inedible. Okay, and they're a good source of protein. Let's say the word protein. Protein. It's you said 蛋白质. Is it 脂? Okay. People can help eradicate. Okay, there's that word. The insects by eating them. Okay, so let's read this. However, since lychee giant stink bugs are edible and a good source of protein, people can also help eradicate the insects by eating them. Li Dingzhong, deputy head of the agency's Jiayi branch office, said on Tuesday. Okay, so it says here, to promote the stink bugs as a food source, Li said his office would hold classes classes at Jiayi's Chukou Nature Center on April 27th and May 11th. Okay, let's keep reading. It says attendees would learn how to identify and remove lychee giant stink bugs and how to cook them, as well as several other common insects, using a handful of easy recipes. Okay, now you know what a recipe is, right? What's a recipe? Yeah, it's like an instruction how to make a dish, right? If you want recipes, there's recipe books, or you can go on YouTube and there's lots of recipes. Why don't we say, now of course this word we pronounce the E, so why don't we say together, recipes. Recipes. Okay, now handful means a small amount of, or a group of, cluster of, a handful. It's like having your hand is full of something. So we say a handful of easy recipes. Okay, so yeah, let's go back to this. Okay, now of course as a food source, we could say a food resource or food source. It's a source of food. It's a way of having food. Okay, so let's read this together. To help promote the stink bugs as a food source, Lee said his office would hold classes at Jiayi's Chuko Nature Center on April 27th and May 11th. Attendees would learn how to identify and remove lychee giant stink bugs and how to cook them, as well as several other common insects, using a handful of easy recipes, he said. Recipes. Okay. So I wonder which other common insects there are. Hopefully not cockroaches. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it says here, although eating insects is not common in Taiwan, it is part of the food cultures of hundreds of millions of people around the world, Lee said. Lychee giant stink bugs, in particular, are eaten across parts of Southeast Asia and China, he said. Okay, so I guess people do eat them in Dongnanya and Zhongguo. Okay, so eating insects is not common, but it's part of the food cultures. We often talk about food cultures. You know, every place has its own food culture, right? Taiwan has a very rich food culture. People like to eat food. There's many kinds of food, and we call that part of the food culture. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so let's read this. Although eating insects is not common in Taiwan, it is part of the food cultures of hundreds of millions of people around the world, Lee said. Lychee giant stink bugs, in particular, are eaten across parts of Southeast Asia and China, he said. Right. Now, when we say in particular, what does that mean? Specifically, especially, you know, yeah, 特别的, right? And especially these bugs are common. Yeah. So anyhow, it says if you want more information, you go to the Chuko Nature Center's Facebook page. Yeah. Chuko. Yeah. Oh, okay. So there you go. There's a picture of fried lychee giant stink bug. So yeah, next time you're hungry and you don't want to go to the supermarket, you can just go find some lychee. Yeah, you can get some giant lychee stink bugs. It looks like this looks like no, this leaf is basil. How do you say basil? Yeah. Basil is really delicious. I love basil. So this is probably pretty good. Maybe we can try it sometime. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, anyhow, that's all we have time for today. So hope you have. We'll see you in a couple weeks then. Thank you.